Welcome to Tommy Solo's Famous Friends. This is where I get to chat with people I've connected with over the years in the world of arts and entertainment. And today I'm very happy to have with us the illustrious, long career gentleman, Tom Wilson. Welcome to the show, Tom.
It's nice to be here with you.
Well, it is absolutely my pleasure. So I got an email a little while ago from your publicist about a brand new video. And you've got so many things under your belt. I can't believe, and when you actually dug into the research to see some of the people you've worked with. I mean, Sarah McLachlan, Colin James, Lucinda Williams, Mavis Staples, among many, many others. And you've had several incarnations with your career. Now, the latest thing, We Live in Dreams. Tell me about that.
Uh, it was a song that I felt needed to be written. Um, my son Thompson Wilson and I, we work sometimes doing soundtracks for movies. We make all the music that you never hear, but you would miss if it wasn't there. So all the stuff that goes behind the action, etc. And the movie had such an impact. I mean, when we're doing these things, we watch the movie more than anybody probably ever will, over and over, and getting the music right. And I felt that the movie deserved a song, and the idea of we live in dreams and that we are all capable of manifesting, our destinations. And we do, if it isn't, that is, if authority doesn't get in the way. This is a movie by Tanya Talaga about the very first land back movement in Kenora, Ontario. I wanted to write a song. I thought this deserves a song. I wrote the song, and it was a lyric that was a little bit too general. We live in dreams. There's longing in it, but there wasn't the subject matter that I needed. So I sent the song to Tanya Talaga, who was at the Cannes Film Festival across the ocean. And I said, this needs a lyric. And she goes, well, I've never written lyrics. Now she's written probably millions of words for the Globe and Mail and spoken, hundreds of thousands of words on CBC News World. She's an excellent writer, journalist, and revealer of the truth. And I sent it to her and I said, well, this is it. I need three verses for this. So on the way home on the plane, she wrote the lyrics, or a majority of the lyrics to We Live in Dreams. I had the chorus idea, but she came up with those incredible verses that really put a huge exclamation point at the end of this movie.
There was one line in particular that stood out for me: never kill what's deep inside, because we live in dreams.
Mhm. That's right. So, I mean, in the story of um, Red, Red Power Rising, the adversity that the indigenous people faced in Kenora was insurmountable. The open racism, which probably, I hope it's improved. It probably still exists. That was an incredible line, and I mean the ability, for her to step out from writing an entire article about that subject and bringing it down to one concise line that you pick up on. That is the gift of really creative writing, undocumented writing.
Yeah, it's all about as a songwriter myself. I don't take a whole lot of joy in the process, but it's the effect that it can have on people. That
Mhm.
that really lights me up. If I'm playing an outdoor festival and there's little kids up at the front of the stage dancing and singing along, that to me is what it's all about. That
Uh-huh.
communicating the expression and the feeling and the people receiving it.
You're absolutely right. I mean, as performing songwriters, as yourself, we need that reaction that we get sometimes, because other than that, we might as well just sit in our rooms and sing to the wall. I mean, every night I perform, with my old band, and when I perform with my old band, Junk House, everybody sings one line that is so simple. It's like it's just a matter of time before we get to shine. is such a simple idea, but it resonates with all human beings.
Absolutely. And what a journey it's been. You know, that was the first that I knew of you really was from 97 and that
Uh-huh.
song, you know, with
Yeah.
Junk House. But that certainly was not the end of the story for your career. I mean, mention some of the people you've worked with, but I mean, my wife was really excited to find out I was going to talk to you because her and her best friend are huge Blackie and the Rodeo Kings fans,
Oh
you know,
yeah. Yeah.
and that's just one of many excellent projects that you've been involved with, and I guess still are. So, how did you get connected with, I mean, Stephen Fearing and Colin Linden and get that all together?
We all had a giant love for Willie P. Bennett and the music that he gave to us. Um, as individuals, we all discovered him. Colin Linden actually played guitar with him for many years. Stephen discovered him because his sisters came visited Canada, and when they went back to Ireland, they brought these Willie P. Bennett records. He discovered him that way. I discovered him by going down to a coffee house, a Night 2 coffee house in Hamilton, and seeing him when I was like 15, 16 years old. What he and Colin Linden, the same, discovered him probably through the Riverboat or Fiddler's Green, some coffee house in Toronto. What he did to all three of us separately and at different times was open up the door of possibilities, that what he was doing resonated with us so deeply that we knew that it was something that we wanted to do. Probably the same influence that you have on those kids dancing in front of your stage. We don't realize that as artists, the biggest job in the world we have is to open up the door of possibilities to the next person to walk through. Willie P. Bennett did that for us. And Colin, the story actually in detail goes Colin Linden and Stephen Fearing were at a John Hyatt show, I think. And they ran into each other and they said, well, they love Willie P. Bennett. I love Willie P. Bennett. We should do a record of Willie P. Bennett. Yeah, that's a really great idea. But we need a third person. Do you think that we could get a third person? Well, who do you know that loves Willie P. Bennett? And Colin Linden said, well, I know Tom Wilson from Junk House loves Willie P. Bennett. So I got a phone call, and I remember coming home from a rank and file show at the Lee's Palace, and I was at the bus terminal because I used to drink a lot and I didn't like to drive. Well, I did like to drive when I was drunk, but I knew that I shouldn't. So I was at the bus terminal and I got the message off my old, the old cassette
Yeah,
message machines. And I called Colin. It was about, probably 11:30, 12 at night. And that was it. Suddenly I was in a band, a project. And then Bernie Finkelstein had the faith to put the record together. And we made a record at Grant Avenue Studio. We worked for probably 3 or 4 days there. And that was it. I was going to do a movie in Costa Rica. Um, and ride a bike through the jungle uh, while people filmed me. And so I was getting literally, I got picked up at the studio and I got to the airport. And when I left for the airport, I said, all right, hey, this has been great, guys. What fun. I think that we've really done something important. And hopefully we expose Willie P. Bennett's music to a broader audience and all that kind of bullshit. And I got in the car and left and didn't think of another thing of it. And that was it. That was the whole project. There was no band or anything. And it was 30, that was 30 years ago, actually. That was 30 years ago in January. So I guess you should never expect things to end too quickly. We've been friends and we've been brothers and we've been bandmates and we've been creative partners for 30 years. It's the longest band I've ever been in, but it was supposed to be a 3-day project. So there you go.
that's chemistry for you, man. Yeah, yeah, that's something else. How these things happen, you know. And oh, I just happen to know a guy. Yeah,
Yeah.
and the other two guys just ran into each other at a Hyatt concert. Man, that's nuts. Lee Harvey Osmond. That's another
Yeah.
one. You know,
Yeah.
the songs are you know, I can't get over. There's nothing that's not good in your catalog that I've come across.
Oh, well, thanks. I wish that there was about 40 million more of you that believe the same thing. Uh, Lee Harvey Osmond came about. My friend Josh Finlayson from the Skydiggers said, Michael Timmons from the Cowboy Junkies is putting together an album of songs that a friend of his wrote about the day JFK was murdered, assassinated. And he said, they got a song. Would you be interested in doing it? And I said, sure, send me the song. And the song was called Parkland, which ended up on the first Lee Harvey Osmond record. And I went in and recorded it, and everything went well. I was thrilled, first of all, to be working with Michael Timmons because he created one of the most important records in my development in my career, which was the Cowboy Junkies Trinity Sessions, made with one microphone, sitting in the middle of Trinity Church. A group of musicians gathered around it, and people executing the music only to serve the song, only to serve Margot Timmons, who was sitting on a stool in the middle of the room with the band around her and a microphone. And that kind of gave me faith because at the time, I guess there was a lot. I didn't pay attention. I couldn't name one of them, but there's a lot of like hair metal bands. There was a lot of people taking extravagant solos, showing off, shaking their asses, that had really nothing to do with serving the song. It was cool entertainment, mind you, I'm sure. And I'd like to see most of those people still fit into the spandex they were wearing. But the Cowboy Junkies came out of that, and it was a complete egoless performance of songs. And I love that. So that album had that Kind of Blue by Miles Davis, Folk Singer by Muddy Waters, the Cowboy Junkies Trinity Sessions, Daniel Lanois' Acadie. They're all albums that stood out for me. So the chance to work with Michael Timmons was way, way up there for me. So at the end of the session, he said, "This is great. So we'll put this under Tom Wilson." And I, as a joke, said, "No, let's put it down as Lee Harvey Osmond, the Osmond brother that didn't get the nurturing at childhood." Right. And he laughed and I laughed and he put down Lee Harvey Osmond. And before I left the studio, he said, "Would you be interested in doing more recording with me?" And it was like, "Yes, I would." And so I started writing songs that would be more groove oriented, more bottom end oriented, and that would serve the song and would create a vibe, a cushion, would create a halo around the lyrics and the singer, me. Um, and it was probably my favorite records and probably the best music that I'll probably ever make in my life was with Michael Timmons because once again it was egoless. There was solos, there was horn solos, there was pedal steel solos, but there was no showing off. And it was something that both Bob and Daniel Lanois taught me years and years ago was to be able to execute what you're doing without showing off. It's a lesson that I still try to work on. Although I can be a bit of a show off if you want me to.
When you talk about serving the song, that is so important. Margot Timmons' voice, the fact that she has such a soft voice and it just breaks through the walls, it's just
Uh-huh.
incredible, and when it comes to that, serving the song, there are some really talented people out there. Some of them still trying to fit into their spandex too, that 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 don't understand. I recently was invited to be a part of a project at a school here in London, OE and we everybody that was involved had to go into the studio, and that was part of their learning process for the students. And I we had a prog bass player come in, and I'd seen some videos, and I thought, well, this guy's really tight, and he knows his stuff, and he had a great tone. But I don't know what he was trying to play, some kind of jazz, that,
Hmm.
and he just didn't understand. I think this guy is really good at playing in that prog environment, but when it comes to serving a singer, some people just don't get it. You
Oh
see a lot
shit,
of
man.
lead guitar players that just don't understand, and they're just riffing all over the vocals. I don't.
Well, I don't know. I'm sure they're getting called back somewhere. They just wouldn't get a call. I mean, if you don't have if you don't have it instilled in you that you are listening to see what is needed in the song, then you are basically whacking off, you know what I mean, with an instrument, and nobody wants to see you whacking off, and nobody wants to hear you whacking off on an instrument. It's a private moment. Please go and play in a closet or in your bedroom or in the bathroom or in the somewhere else. I don't want to see it. I don't want to hear it. And that's I think. Listen, I don't want to I don't want to demean people's efforts to create, but I think it's a lack of confidence that brings that on, that they have to fill up every moment, when sometimes it's just a whole note, one big whole note from the bass can actually. We were talking about Tanya Talaga's great line. It's the same thing. You can either write, you can write a 400-piece essay, or you can say it all in one line. You can play, 1,000 notes, or you can play one great note. And what's the joke about what's the difference between a jazz player and a rock musician? A jazz player, oh no, a rock musician plays 3 notes for 10,000 people, and a jazz player plays 10,000 notes for 3 people. I think that's the joke.
So to be fair, all of this stuff is valid for somebody, right?
It's
Um,
absolutely, you're absolutely right. It is valid, but
yeah,
I hate that line, "Stay in your lane," but you at least figure out what's needed in this moment.
exactly. Like the bass player that I tried to use on my last project. Like he's valid in that environment, just not
Yeah,
in the mainstream. Speaking of "We Live in Dreams," it's quite an interesting video. I think we should maybe just take a little pause and let people have a preview. What do you think?
yeah, give her.
Okay.
We're all gonna shine one day. Stand our ground and never stray. Rising tall with love and pride, while we live in dreams. With our faith and with our shield, and all our children in these fields. Now we can travel free as lights when we live in dreams. We're all gonna shine one day, yeah. All we need is time. Fill your hearts and stand your ground. Turn and fight this shameful town. They'll never kill what's deep inside living dreams. We're living dreams.
Well, that's quite interesting, man. And I know that it's just a part of a bigger project. And the doc comes out, is it the end of May,
I believe
beginning?
so. CBC. It's a CBC production, and I think it's coming out the end of May. Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
I mean, Tanya Talaga. Also the thing is that you don't always need to find people that do exactly what you do, to be inspired and to contribute to make something hopefully great or that you enjoy. Um, Tanya Talag she's a journalist. She's an investigative journalist. She's a revealer of the truth. She's an author, and she's also got the energy and the initiative to make a difference in this world. And those are the people that I want to be hanging out with.
Yeah. Now, among other things, and I know you've talked about this, and maybe you get tired of talking about it sometimes, but I remember a few years ago listening to the CBC, and you were at that point in time you had just discovered your Indigenous heritage.
That's right.
And that opens up a lot of doors. I think I've done some touring around the Powwow Trail is what they call it. Playing Serpent River, Sagamok, Wickwimacong. And
Yeah,
we were both friends with Crystal Shawanda, for
yeah,
example. But there's a certain spirituality that you don't realize until you're among the indigenous people in their home environment.
yeah. Well, we create our sacred spaces, right? And what our hearts bring to whatever piece of dirt that we're standing on is what it's about. I mean, our land, this is what the idea about land back. Land is not a commodity to us as indigenous people. Land is our heart, and it's a place that we for our identity, for our language. Land back to me, just it really is a broader sense. It doesn't mean I've been arrested as a land defender. Um, I know that I was there for a greater cause. I was there uh, for future generations. We create holy spaces if we bring our hearts completely to the space. And that's what I find. Maybe that's what you're talking about when you're, in powwows or at indigenous gatherings, where people are able to focus together rather than just as individual parts. I mean,
Yeah,
that's why the Christians have churches. You know what I mean? Just as human beings, we're all trying to achieve the same thing. You know, um, I think that as indigenous people, we just got a head start on it.
no kidding. Yeah, and I know that at one point in time I was a sideman in this band that played on the Powwow Trail, and I remember I was in a hurry to get to Serpent River, to this one show in Serpent River, and when I got there, I thought, oh man, I got like 15 minutes to get tuned up here, and I drove right up to the stage, and then I found out that there was a circle
Oh yeah,
that I was not supposed to cross. you
oh
know,
yeah,
and the certain cultural traditions, like there's a keeper of the fire,
uh,
and it's their job to keep the flame going throughout the whole process, among other things. But I just found the whole environment to be very, very spiritual and uplifting.
yeah. It's where you want to be, and nobody's expecting anything from you. And I also found um, when I started to be around the indigenous communities more, it was. that I found out that, I wasn't the puffy, sweaty Irish guy I thought I was, that I was actually Mohawk, or as my mother used to say, you're more Indian than most of the people back home, because both my parents are Mohawk. And that's, it's kind of rare, I guess, but it's like, oh, so you're one of us. Okay, well, come on in. It's completely accepting. I didn't have to, show a magic ring, or I didn't have to give a password, to get in. My blood was what spoke, and my blood was what was accepted. Um, I mean, people will find ways to be critical of you, no matter who you are, no matter what you do, no matter what you believe. So, um, I got called out for about 5 minutes, as a pretendian. I've been called born again Indian, because, I've been, accused of, growing up in the city, being a kind of a city, indigenous city person. You can't help the circumstances that you're born into. You can only spend and dedicate yourself to learning and absorbing as much as you possibly can before they start throwing dirt on you.
It's interesting, when I was a kid, I had two best friends, and one of them was First Nations. His family name was Dokis, and his father was the in line to be the hereditary chief of the Dokis First Nations. And I never understood when I was a kid in the '60s why why he didn't become the chief, and they had a house out there and whatnot. But it occurred to me all these years later that his dad was really a smart guy because
Uh-huh.
he moved them into North Bay, I think, to avoid the '60s scoop.
Oh
We
yeah,
didn't.
right.
And I remember going to the reserve with him and his dad a few times when we were kids, and he was treated differently because he didn't live on the reserve.
Uh-huh. Well, if people, if they can find a crack in you, they'll definitely try to break you open. That's just the way it is. That's the way it is in not only in our community, it's the way human beings are.
Yeah, I was going to say people are people, period. Nothing we can do
You
about
know,
it.
yeah, that's the thing. I mean, I wrote a play, a musical. It's going to the NAC, National Arts Center, in September. And there was we had a director at the time that originally, was wanted an all indigenous cast, all indigenous crew, and was schooling me quite a bit. And she ended up quitting, and she ended up not being indigenous at all,
Wow.
which is
Yeah.
like, what the fuck? But my point to her and my point moving forward with the play is that I grew up in a Catholic neighborhood. I grew up in a working class neighborhood in Hamilton, Ontario. My world started there. So for me to say this is an Indigenous play, which it is, it's a 60s scoop play, but we have to include everybody. I have to include, the settler world because that's where I grew up. It would be, um, it wouldn't be an honest story without it, without that component. That's all. It's
Absolutely.
simple. It's simple to me, and anybody, that wants to criticize or argue with me about it, really, it's just got to fuck off, man.
So there's a couple of songs in the press kit that I was really interested in. Death Row Love Affair.
Uh-huh.
Like, do you just kind of dream of stuff? Like, where does the inspiration come from for a song like that?
Well, there's a song from my mother, and the death row. It's a little dramatic, but the point being that it really is a song trying to illustrate that we're in this together. Um, It was a calling out to my mother. A lot of my songs in the last couple years, 3, 4, 5 years, have been a calling out to my mother, who passed away about a year and a half ago. And I wrote a play that gave her a voice. I wrote a book that helped give her a voice. The second book that I just finished, that's being edited by at Penguin Random House, is giving her a voice. I mean, there's a lot of other stories besides giving her a voice, but the saddest thing in the world is a voice that never gets heard. And she was an 18-year-old Mohawk girl that was brought into Hamilton and gave birth to me in a Catholic hospital. And I was immediately, I came out of her body and was taken away from her immediately and given to Catholic Children's Aid. My mother walked the halls of St. Joseph's Hospital in Hamilton, going to the nursery, looking through the glass, wondering which was her baby, not knowing if the baby was male or female. And you know, that wouldn't happen to a white girl, you know what I mean? But it was 1959. So right from that point, probably before that, in fact, yes, before that, her voice was taken from her. Her ability to make decisions about her own life was taken from her. So I can't fix that, but I can document it and I can express it creatively so that I feel that I'm at least putting her voice into the universe.
Yeah, interesting. I've said for years that in order to sing the blues, you got to have the blues. And there's a lot of, you talk about pretendians. There's a lot of pretend blues, whatever you want to call that. You know. But to me, I've experienced, and I've talked to a lot of our legacy artists and so on. Um, I've experienced that those who have shown the most passion in their music and exude the most emotion, and the power. I find there's always been some sort of trauma or tragedy, along the way. And whether it's just growing up in a working class neighborhood and dealing with everything that comes with, being in Hamilton as a kid, or whether it's, I grew up dirt poor in North Bay, in kind of a tough neighborhood. And then, I grew up without a dad,
Hmm.
and so on. Uh, but this whole thing, with the way that we've treated our indigenous people over the years, and we pretend that there isn't any racism today, but
Hmm.
I think we pretend to not be racist, on the whole as a people. And we've got a long way to go, but it certainly it certainly adds to the overall zeitgeist when we have somebody with a platform like you, who's talking about it and now writing about it and giving your mother the voice that she never had, and you've already got one best-selling book out there, Beautiful Scars. Um, it's good to know that we have champions like you out there, and that you're doing the work a lot of people
Well,
refuse to do.
I think it's our job as artists. It's not our job, I mean, I don't feel it's my job as an artist to be, walking the streets with a piece of cardboard on the end of a stick for every cause, right? That's not to me the job of an artist. The job of an artist is to create art, is to change the landscape. We are not, the job of artists, besides opening the door of possibilities, is to create something that wasn't there yesterday. We're creators, and churches and governments and corporations, the loudest voices out there, are on this planet to control us. So to be embraced by the work of artists is to discover something that you're not going to get at Walmart, and you're not going to get from the NDP or the liberals or the conservatives, and you're not going to get it from the Catholics or the Anglicans or any, it's just like, it doesn't matter what you put up against art. Nothing is as honest as art. Nothing is as nurturing as art. And if your art is guided by an incentive to give somebody a voice, then I'll bet you that somebody else is going to find their voice because of it. If you create, if you tell your story honestly, you find people that identify with you in ways that you didn't even know you were going to reach. The 60 scoop groups that I reach out to me, I had no idea. I didn't write my play and I didn't write the music for my play with the intent of being a 60 scoop story or bringing the 60 scoop world together, but it manages to do that, you know what I mean, to a certain degree. Um, that's why we do this, you know. We don't know what the outcome's going to be. I got a bunch of guitars here, and you got a bunch of guitars there, and you know, we might just shut off from this and write something, and we don't know who it's going to affect and how it's going to affect them. You know, that's why punk rock was so great. You know, punk rock was such a guttural expression that there was nothing but that energy and that message to be able to latch on to, you know.
It was
I'm too
like
old. I'm too old to keep up with that now, but you know, there was a day.
it was like dark versus light, you know, because disco was huge, and
Yeah.
you know that you know, God love the people that you know would dance their butts off to that, you know, but we needed punk to bring back some balance, I think. Man, you've got so much going on, but the new documentary translated Red Power Rising comes out.
Yes.
I think it's May 24th on CBC One, and then June 1st on CBC Gem. So we'll look for that. We Live in Dreams is on YouTube. You've got a lot more going on, and I don't want to take up your whole day, but I do want to thank you so much, Tom, for taking the time out of your day to do this with me. And until next time, cheers.
Thank you, Tommy Solo.
Tommy Solo's Famous Friends is a one-man production, meaning that I've done all the work, including recording, editing, guest acquisition, etc. The theme song for Tommy Solo's Famous Friends is a clip from my original composition, The Burn, all rights reserved. If you enjoy the show and you'd like to help us keep it going, why don't you click on the Buy Me a Coffee link in the show notes. Hit the like button, subscribe, all that stuff. We really appreciate it. You can find me on Facebook and Instagram. And until next time, cheers.